Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the original Loretta Brown Show, radio to open the heart, heal the soul, and awaken the consciousness. Benny, it's stormy. I don't know.
It is.
Stormy
It's
weather.
a wet day today, but don't worry, the weekend's looking good. It's going to dry things up just in time for Halloween.
I know. So what do people do for Halloween these days? You know, I'm from a different generation. What happens? Do kids dress up or?
Yeah, I still have 10-year-olds. I have twins, and so they are still ready to go. They've got their empty bags waiting at the door intently to release the fury, they really
Are they 10? They're not 10.
The boys will be 11 in June.
Oh, every time I talk to you, I remember them babies, little tiny binkers. I know. Well, anyway, I got to change how I talk about them. Are they as tall as you now, or what's going on?
Man, I wish. I want them to. I mean, I'm 6'1", so it's like if they even become close to that, I'm going to be so happy.
That's wonderful. Yes. Yeah. So anyway, I hope everybody's having a good morning. Always stay safe out there and warm and dry. I'm Loretta Brown. I'm the owner of Reiki Oasis, located right here in the greater Seattle area for the last 27 years or thereabouts. I am teaching Reiki. I have a Reiki 2 class coming up the second Saturday in November. And you have to have taken Reiki 1 to take this class. But I have all kinds of people stepping forward right now. My guides and angels told me a couple of years ago that we are going to need more and more healers through the next years. And so if you are being called to do that, Reiki is a great, it's a great all around thing, but it's also a great stepping stone for people to get into. So if you're interested in studying Reiki, you can go to schedule.reikioasis.com and sign up, and we'll get you all trained up. I also have, what else do I have coming up? Let me look here. I've got Sunday meditation with Loretta every Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you cannot be there at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on a Sunday, sign up and I will send you a recording of the meditation. It's really just a way to, at least once a week, try to stop and just stop and tune in. And of course, we want to get to where we do that all the time. Should live your life from a higher place.
That's some really good spiritual customer service you provide there, Loretta. Good.
Thank you. Thank
awesome.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you. We do what we can because there's just one of me and lots of yous out there.
Yous?
Yeah, use. That's you with an S. Use.
Yeah, I heard it.
There's lots of yous out there. Anyway, not the other one. Anyway, I am a listener-supported show, and thank you to my listeners who help support us. You can go to patreon.com/The Loretta Brown Show and become part of the community. I want to do a little check-in with astrology because October 31st is this coming Sunday. It is not only the last day of October, it is what we call Halloween, and it's also what's called a cross-quarter day. Now, Halloween gets its roots from a pagan festival called Samhain. It's a time to honor death, rebirth, and our loved ones who have passed. But Halloween is also what's called a cross-quarter day, meaning it is the midway point between the fall equinox and the winter solstice. So in Samhain or Halloween is celebrated from October 31st till November 1st because it was believed on 11/1 spiritual activity was at its highest. This was due to the rising of the Pleiades, which would reach their highest point in the sky during this time of year in the northern hemisphere. The Pleiades are said to represent the cycles of death and rebirth, and this coincided with the cycles and rhythms of Mother Nature. The veil between the living and the dead is also said to be thinnest due to the sun's position in the deep and intuitive sign of Scorpio, which we entered last week. And Scorpio is a sign also connected with transformation and rebirth. And so it was just traditional that at this time of year, there was a lot of celebration. And it's also a time to honor the fact that we as spiritual beings never die. Instead, we live on in different forms and in different ways. So we continually recreate ourselves through the cycles of life and death. And I always think maybe we should just look at that as like there is no death. We'll talk more about that with my guest. I can't wait to hear everything he has to say. And then, like I said, we are going from October 31st to 11/1, and that is a numerology of 111. 111, that's 11/1, is an angel number of protection, divine intervention, and angelic support. It can indicate that our guardian angels and our dearly beloved loved ones that are passed on are protecting us or sending us a message. And we can also look at the number code of 111 as 3 pillars representing this world, the next world, and the state in between. It can indicate a new chapter in our lives is beginning. Also, for all of you romantic people out there, October 31st also has Venus, the goddess of love, and Juno, the goddess asteroid of marriage and soulmates, conjunct in Sagittarius. And this is beautiful energy for all matters of the heart. We may feel a stronger desire to connect to those around us, or we may notice that our hearts are being activated to open to a greater love. I was talking to a couple of people earlier this week, my clients, and we've all had heartache and heartbreak, and what do we do with that, right? So it's a journey. Both Venus and Juno traveling together in our cosmic skies may also shine a spotlight on our relationships and a deeper truth that radiates from the deepest longings of our hearts. And so what is your heart's desire? If you listen deeply, especially in the coming days, you may just come to realize a higher truth. I'm also noticing that with many of my clients that the deep desire of their heart is to help or to serve, and they are feeling like they want to do something a little different in their lives. So let's move forward into November. We'll be moving into eclipse season, which is going to bring a bunch of endings to things. And so I'm telling everybody, hang on, because the whole year has been building up to the last few months of this year, which are setting the stage for the new world that we are stepping into. And we are the ones we've been waiting for. I don't know if that's good or bad, Betty. I hope it's good. Yeah.
I hope so too.
Yeah, me too. Anyway, all my talk about Samhain and Halloween, celebration and honoring of cycles and death and life is the perfect introduction for my guest today, Dimitri Moraitis. Dimitri is the co-founder and the co-spiritual director of Spiritual Arts Institute in Encinitas, California. He is an illumined metaphysical teacher, healer, and co-author of numerous books with Barbara Martin. And we will be discussing his newest book, which just came out, Heaven and Your Spiritual Evolution, a Mystic's Guide to the Afterlife and Reaching Your Highest Potential. Wow. Welcome to the show, Dimitri.
Well, hi, Loretta. Thank you so much for having me on.
I know. Look what I have for the people.
We got to get you this one. Yeah.
I know. I got to tell you, I got one of those.
The galley. You got the galley.
Yeah. And I went, oh, I don't know. And then here, for those of you on live YouTube or watching it, the cover is beautiful. Yeah, this is a beautiful book. I stayed up late trying to. I actually wanted to finish it all. It's going to go right next to my bed because I love this book. I just love this book.
It was a labor of love to write it. And, it is decades of experience with Barbara's clairvoyant studies. And oh my God, yes, the illustrations. We worked with an illustrator, his life. He worked with another clairvoyant, Flower Newhouse. And, he spent his adult life basically doing these depictions of the inner world. So when we were working together, we would give him the scenarios and he did this brilliant job of getting in tune with it all. So they're also hanging in our office and our training center. They're full oil paintings, no Photoshop, the old master's way. Yeah.
Well, I'm thrilled. I was just so thrilled by this book. Sometimes I pick a book up and there's an energy to it, and this one was like goosebumply and good stuff for the listeners. People know I'm that way.
Right.
But I literally, I do this thing. I just flipped it open, and I flipped right to the page with this
Oh, yeah.
beautiful.
The
And
temple of healing. Yeah.
I have had these visions for such a long time, especially sleeping, that I
Yeah.
go places.
Yeah. Oh boy, that's a part of the book, as you know.
Yeah.
We're busy while
And
we sleep sometimes.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
So, can you give us a little background about yourself?
Yeah, and I have to talk, of course, about Barbara as well. So, well, first of all, the book is part of a series of books that we've been writing on what we're calling the 7 spiritual arts. So we've done one on the aura, on healing, on karma and reincarnation, on the angels and the hierarchy. And then this one is the big picture. What does it mean to actually grow spiritually? What is the other side like? And how do you evolve through all those different dimensions of life? And that's what this is about. Now, I began my journey years ago. I actually started my career in film and television. I was going to be a movie maker, and I was very creative. I was also a pianist, but I was having these, I didn't even know what metaphysics was at that point. I didn't have a word for it, but I was having these, I call them my inspirational moments. And they were very elevating, kind of consciousness changing. But again, I just thought I was being inspired. But they got so strong at one point. It was my awakening. It was my spiritual awakening. I call it my Saul in the road to Damascus moment, because it was dramatic, but I still didn't quite understand what it was. And then when I realized, oh, this is metaphysics, I couldn't get enough of it. And I was in LA at the time. There's a lot of, PRS was there. There's a lot of metaphysically oriented people there. So I was in a good place for it. About a year later, I was invited to a dinner party. This woman was doing a meditation, and it was Barbara. It was the first time I meditated. And that was it. After talking to her, I thought we were having an inspired conversation. She says I was interrogating her, but but basically, when I realized she was talking from her own experiences, especially stuff like the other side, I said, this is the one I got to study with, because she helped me understand what I was experiencing. And then she also gave me language and training. We found out very quickly that we were both also writers, and we started writing pretty fast. And then after a while, at that point, Barbara's teachings were all inspirational, and we had lots of, notes, but there were no books, there were no manuals. And so we got to organize all this. So we started the Institute, and then we started systematically writing the books. Now, Barbara, I have to talk about her, because we could do the whole show just on her. So she was born basically seeing the aura. From age 3, she started to see it. She didn't understand what it was as a little kid. This was Depression era, right? And there were no books or nothing. I mean, it was not known out there at all. She said, I knew I was attracted to people that had pretty colors around them, and I was kind of repelled to people that didn't have those colors. And then she also started to have these simple out-of-body experiences of being taken to the other side. She said, I knew I wasn't dreaming. I also knew I wasn't dying. I wasn't afraid. They were taking me to these pleasant places. And it was just, even as a kid, she knew this was certainly not the only world there is. At 11, she was in a theater group, and the owner, the leader of it, called her in privately one time and said, basically, you can see the aura, can't you? And Barbara's mouth dropped. She said, oh my God, is that what it's called? She didn't even have a name for it. And the woman said, oh, I can see the aura too. I'm a Hermetic scientist. My mother, grandmother, they're all Hermetic scientists. And I want to teach you about your gifts. And she did. She started teaching her how to interpret the aura, to understand some of these clairvoyant gifts. Years later, when Barbara came to California during the golden age of Hollywood, she met another clairvoyant, very developed soul. And this woman basically said, you're going to go on the lecture platform. You're going to go in the public. You're going to teach. You're going to, again, this is before even Kirlian photography. So to say I want to do a lecture on the aura, you might as well said, we're going to planet Pluto, but that's exactly what happened. And she trained her, and then the career started. And She's truly one of the pioneers. It is so nice after all these years of working together to see metaphysics blossoming. It's turning into a different, well, I don't want to call it's almost like a different age of it. And the Renaissance is maturing. And things like meditation and yoga and energy healing, these are not strange fringe things. These are more mainstream. And that's a result of decades of slow, steady integration. And I'm just really delighted to even be talking about you with this today, because as you know, to do this even now, years ago would have been unthinkable. So we're in a different time now.
Yeah, and here we are. We're on the radio, right?
Yeah, exactly. The airwaves going
on the airwaves. I know.
It's really exciting because people want answers.
Yeah.
There's a lot of crazy stuff going on right now, and you need to orient yourself. If you have a spiritual foundation, nothing in this world can topple you over, because you have something that's beyond this world. So you need that spiritual foundation more than ever today.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you hit on a point that I wanted to make sure we brought out today. So yeah, and the book, Heaven and Your Spiritual Evolution. Yeah.
Right. Right.
So what is heaven? Where is heaven?
Okay, well, that's so we're getting into deep waters right off the bat. Well, let's talk about it in a couple of ways. First of all, we do have to think of heaven as an actual place. So it is not just a wonderful idea. It's not just a hope that there's something. You can actually literally go there. Now, interesting, in the ancient days, this was a big debate. Well, how do you go there? Do you go there in your physical body? Do you go there? It was hard for people to understand that you may have a non-physical body. That's why there was such a big deal about the resurrection idea. And why even now, some religious practices say don't cremate the body, because there was this ancient belief the body would literally get resurrected again. So heaven is an actual place, but it's also a state of consciousness. So we need to be in order to go to heaven, we have to be in the heavenly consciousness now, not when we die. We're not going to become saints when we die if we haven't been saints here. You're not like a completely different person on the other side. You're very similar to the way you are here. And then third, we have to think of it as the process of getting there. As you know, Loretta, in the first chapter in the book, we say you don't go to heaven, you grow to heaven. Heaven is an evolutionary process. It's a maturing process. So just like if Earth is a schoolhouse, we can think of every lifetime on this earth as like a grade in school. And slowly we're refining ourselves, improving, maturing ourselves till we eventually become citizens of those beautiful heavenly realms. Now, some think, well, is heaven like you're on clouds and you're playing harps all day long? And, it sounds boring a little bit, but think of it the opposite way. The higher up you go the spiritual ladder, the more creative, the more expressive, the more powerful you become, the more loving. You're more of everything the higher up you go. So in heaven, it's incredibly creative there. It's incredibly expressive. You are incredibly active and doing things. It is the most exciting place you could ever imagine.
So when we are here in our physical bodies, right? Mm-hmm. And I'll just reflect back and you go with it. So here, while we're here, we're working on getting to that level where we're in heaven, and it begins with our consciousness. And then when we get to heaven, we continue.
Yeah.
Okay. What graduates us into heaven, and let's talk about that, because we're at this living level of life, and of course we want to know what heaven is all about, but talk a little bit more about how that works.
So if I were to ask 20 people in spiritual work, what does it mean to grow spiritually? I probably would get 20 different answers. Now we know what it's like to go from a child to an adult. There are definite stages of growth. Some like to measure themselves, right? Oh, this year I was this high, and then 2 years later I'm 2 inches higher. We understand that. But in spiritual work, growing spiritually means is exactly what you're just saying, literally evolving through the dimensions of life. The other side isn't one place, it's many places. In my Father's house are many mansions, and they're actual places to go to, and they're also states of consciousness. So you and I and everybody listening right now is literally this minute vibrating energetically to a certain level of consciousness that corresponds to a realm on the other side. So if I were, let's say, to die today, it was my time to go home today, I'd take the light I have today, and that would carry me to the place on the other side I've earned the right to be. It's not really reward or punishment. It's like attracting like. So let's say if I've earned 50,000 watts of power, let's just give example, I will go to the realm on the other side corresponding to that, not 20, not 100, 50. So the key, the most important thing you can do on this earth is to earn divine light. That is your passport to eternity. The light of your auric field is fueling your entire evolution. So the most precious thing you possess is your divine light.
Okay, that raised questions because I love to ask questions.
Yeah.
So how do we increase that divine light?
Okay, all right. So first of all, we do have to realize we have this magnificent auric field. We have this power, and it's not like one color or two colors. It's more our auric field is more intricate than our physical body because we are multifaceted beings. Now, you earn light in two very basic ways. One, we've been doing from the beginning of time, and that's with every good word, thought, act, and deed. So every positive thing that you are doing is building up your aura. Now, sometimes we say, well, I did all that and I didn't get anything for it, and no one even gave me a thank you. I mean, I'm sure parents feel this sometimes with their kids. I do a lot for these kids. They're not really telling me anything, but it's building up your auric field. It's building up your powers. So don't wait for that gold star or that pat on the back. Keep doing good. Have your integrity. Look at every spiritual tradition in the world talks about conduct of living, whether it's the Golden Rule, the 10 Commandments, the Eightfold Path of Buddha. All of that is talking about how you live your life. If you're going to church on Sunday and cheating your partners on Monday, that is not living a spiritual life. You have to walk your talk. There's just no other way around it. That is building up your auric field. Now, another way is sort of Max Heindel the Rosicrucian mystic, used to talk about sort of the accelerated path, the path of the initiate, the straight and narrow. That's where, if you've had this awakening, by the way, everybody's growing, right? It doesn't matter if you believe in metaphysics or spirituality or God or not. If you're living the life, that's what counts. There are those that do not call themselves spiritual, that are in fact more spiritual than those who say, oh no, I live a very spiritual life. The word doesn't necessarily mean that's what you're doing, right?
Right.
But if you have had the higher calling, and please, it's really the ground thing of the book. If you've had the higher calling, follow it. It's not accidental. It's God knocking on your door. Do something about it, because then you can accelerate your path. And there one of the keys is meditation. We recommend for everyone, if you're on this path, you should be meditating daily. It doesn't have to be a giant 2-hour meditation, but it has to be consistent and it has to be real. You can't be meditating while you're driving or walking. In meditation, you are in the stillness, you're withdrawing from life for the moment, active life that is, and you're getting into your inner self. And you can actually draw on spiritual power. And then if you live it, that's another way. So for example, in the auric field, the energy of confidence, those people who feel confident, comes through in this beautiful gold light. If you have a lot of gold light in your aura, you're a doer. You're definitely not a sitter, But let's say I need to, ask for that raise at my job, and I just don't have the guts to do it. I keep chickening out, if I'm being honest with myself, but I just don't. I know I earned it. I should be having it, but I don't have the guts to go in there and literally ask for the raise. So in my aura, I'd be probably lacking some of that gold light. Now, if I draw in the gold light through meditation, and then I say, now I better get in there and do it for God's sakes. Not only will I notice I might have more confidence to do it, but that gold now starts to become a part of me. And now I will notice I'll have confidence in other things. And that, again, is elevating the auric field, and that is evolving my soul. So by you meditate, but you have to live the truth you're calling upon. And as you do that, it becomes wisdom. And then that's what evolves the soul. So we have to learn our lessons. That's why we should not, some people think, gee, you know what, this life is too harsh. I just want to be in my spiritual bubble. No, the very challenge of life is your opportunity. You are finding the divine, not by getting away from life, but by participating in it and facing the challenges of life. I love it that the Chinese symbol for crisis and opportunity is the same character. So a crisis is an opportunity if seen in the right way. So face the challenges of the life. You have what it takes to make it work. You just got to apply yourself, and you will feel much more confident. I love, Barbara used to say, do you want to be the master or the victim of your own life? If you start playing the role of the victim, oh me, oh the problem is here, oh the problem is here, oh I got the short end of the lollipop, I got the, you're playing the role of the victim. Take responsibility for your life. If it's not exactly where you want it to be right now, figure out how you want to change it and roll up your sleeves and get out there and do it. And that is the key to spiritual evolution.
Wow. I am thrilled with what you said, and I can feel this tugging on me. Like I'm like, yes, yeah.
And it's fun too, right? It makes it an adventure. Then life it's not boring anymore. Well, not that it was necessarily, but it becomes an adventure. The big things, the little things are an adventure. I don't have to go to Hawaii to that adventure. I can do it right here. Of course, Hawaii is fun to go to too. But
well, my daughter's there. I could say hi.
Oh, wow. Does she live there?
Yeah, she does. Hi, Jenny. I love you.
Oh, which island is she on?
The Big Island.
Oh,
yeah.
good for her. Well, they're letting people on there now again, I guess, huh? It's not off.
If you behave yourself, I don't know if we can, but sometimes we pretend, don't we, Dimitri? Yeah. I love what you said. So are you going to be the master or the victim of your own life? I love that so much.
Yeah.
We're going to take a station break, but a lot of the things that you said actually kind of fit synchronistically into some of the things I was saying in the astrology check-in about this time is really kind of calling us. It's calling us, and I think many people listening, you've been feeling that deeper calling of the heart, and that's the higher calling.
Yeah.
And so we are here to kind of step up our game a little bit, I think. So we're going to take a break. Please don't go away. We've got so much more to cover with Dimitri Moraitis, his book, Heaven and Your Spiritual Evolution. So we're going to take a little station break. We'll be right back.
All right. All clear and still live on YouTube, kids.
We're still live on YouTube.
Oh, see, the fun never stops. Yeah.
Never.
No, it's just the people on the airways that get to listen to some kind of advertising, which is
they got to keep you on the airwaves, right? Yeah.
I love this so much. The word hermetic.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about the word hermetic, because it brings a symbol into my head.
Right.
Okay.
Well, there's two ways to think of the interesting. In our tradition that we teach, we call the heart chakra the Hermetic center, the world affairs. So that's one meaning. But the Hermetic tradition is one of the oldest metaphysical traditions in the world. And a lot of the ancient foundations of the metaphysical practices were really actually Hermetic. They may have gone to different lands. I'm sure you've read the Kabbalion, where they talk about that, all the mystical traditions drank from the well of basically the Hermetic sciences, and then they would take it back to their lands and kind of, adapt it to their own cultures. And it's a very, I found interesting that Barbara, her first teachings was in the Hermetic sciences, and we're following what we call the Kingdom of Light teachings, which is based on the Hebrew mystics and kind of on the monotheistic venue there. And that's a more emerging tradition that's coming onto the scene still even today. So there's this, not only is there's this emergence of interest in spirituality, once again, from the ancient days, there's a new emergence of the metaphysical tradition, period. There's a new phase of it coming into the world. So it's kind of a double delight, if we want to call it that, it's now, I'm sure like Blavatsky was one of the first to re-energize in theosophy the tradition in the Hermetic sciences, and she was trying to show that all the religions and all the sciences and physical sciences come from the sort of the same root. And that was groundbreaking, because up to that point, the traditions weren't all talking to each other. And, even now we still see some challenges there, but slowly now we're trying to see how we're alike more than how we're different. But yeah, Dorothy, from what Barbara said, had these handwritten.
I've got to interrupt you there, Dimitri. I've got to bring you two back on here.
Okay.
You got it.
All right, stand by.
Welcome back to the original Loretta Brown Show with your host, me, Loretta Brown. You can find out more about me at ReikiOasis.com or at the KKNW, the original Loretta Brown Show. And of course, all the shows are archived. You can find them in the KKNW archives, and also podcast, Spotify, iTunes, Audible. We're all over the place. And the YouTubes are also at the 1150 YouTube site. So my guest today, Dimitri Moraitis, his newest book, Heaven and Your Spiritual Evolution, A Mystic's Guide to the Afterlife and Reaching Your Highest Potential. During the break, we were talking about about the word hermetic. And Dimitri, if you could just kind of finish up that thought for us.
Yeah, well, it's important, because one of the things to realize is that metaphysical traditions are not self-created. In other words, we didn't kind of create these ideas. We're kind of the mediums or the channels or the emissaries of them. So there are traditions that come in that the divine brings in, and then the metaphysical expressions are born of that. So the Hermetic sciences, is one of the most ancient of those traditions. The ones that we have focused a lot in the book is called the Kingdom of Light tradition, which does start with the Hebrew mystics. But again, there is sort of this beautiful emerging, not only interest in metaphysics, but sort of a new era in metaphysical understanding, period. As the Higher's been saying, there's never been a better time to grow spiritually than today. And there's never been more opportunities than today. So that's why you want to do everything you can to follow the path that you had. Yeah, I mean, when Barbara was studying at 11, evidently Dorothy had these handwritten manuscripts on the Hermetic, and unfortunately these are not things you can buy on Amazon, but they very clearly showed, the auric fields and the interpretation of them and the spiritual worlds. So these things were understood, but they were generally kept sort of secret. And the reason Dorothy let her know is because she could see the talent in Barbara. No one else knew what Dorothy could do. They thought she was this brilliant. She had a theater stock company. That was her day job, but she was the secret agent woman that had this inner side to her, but she saw it in Barbara, and she wanted to help Barbara, understand what was going on, because no one around her could follow what was happening to her.
Yeah, I'm thinking when you're talking about, we are expanding. Something is happening right now on planet Earth, I'll say, where I do feel like there is a reemergence of interest in spiritual things, I'll say, metaphysical things. And there is, I think, a higher calling for many people right now. I think your teachings and your books and everything I think everybody should just get them and take a look at them. You said something earlier, and I want to kind of go back to it, because we were talking about the aura, we're talking about the light, the divine light, right. And that when you die, you kind of go to a place that's, I'm going to say, matches that or is equivalent right. to that. Right. So can you talk about reincarnation?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of the interesting things or challenges of the book is, if you're writing a book on the aura, everything's focused on the aura. If you're talking about karma, everything's focused on karma. But if you're focusing on spiritual growth, you have to weave several pieces together. So yes, the aura is one thing you have to weave, that you have this power that's fueling everything. but you also have to weave in the understanding you're not doing it on your own. So the angels are helping you. I love the expression of the Talmud: for every blade of grass, there's an angel bending over saying, grow, so that you're, even if you think you're doing it on your own, or gosh, I'm being neglected, no one's paying attention to me. No, the divine is still there with you. So stay connected. But the other big key is you can't do it all in a single life. No matter how good a life you have, no matter how much you accomplish in this life, it's not enough to go from ground zero all the way to the heaven worlds. It's like saying, I did the best job in kindergarten. I was the best kindergarten student ever. You're not quite ready for your PhD just yet. You still got to go through the stages. And reincarnation is that opportunity to let our soul come back to earth multiple times, to experience, to learn, to enrich ourselves. We've been, living in all parts of the world. We've been male, we've been female, we've been rich, we've been poor. We've gone through it all and are going through it, because that's what's enriching the soul, and that's what's helping you to evolve. So what the other big key in the book we say is, okay, it's not a matter of if you're going to get to heaven. We're all going to get there. It's just a matter of when. When am I going to, okay, if I'm going to grow there, it's kind of like the kid says, when am I going to be grown up? When am I going to be that? We all want to be, sometimes do it faster than it takes to get there. But what we do want to know is, okay, it may or may not be the goal of this life to get to the heaven worlds, but I have a potential for this life. So if this is my starting point here, and this is the end point, where am I in the journey? And how far can I travel in that journey? So you want to hit what we call your spiritual potential, because not only do we come in, are we supposed to leave this earth better than the way we found it? We're supposed to leave this earth at a higher level of consciousness than when we started. So if you hit your potential for this lifetime, whatever that is for you, then you've had a completely successful life. And there is nothing more enjoyable than that. There's no earthly delight that can, top completing what you came here to do. So that means also organizing your life, because sometimes we get distracted. We do all these things that are really not essential, right? Look at what's happening in the workforce now after this pandemic. People are reassessing. Am I really doing something that's really enriching me? I've been just chug. But now they're asking deeper questions, and you want to ask those questions because life is precious. Rudyard Kipling's poem, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it. We've got to make this time count. We're not here forever. And so if you drop away the things that are peripheral, let's say if you asked yourself, if I had only time to do one thing right now, what would that be? Or two things? What are the most important things in your life? And are you giving yourself enough time to do that with all the distractions? I love Steve Jobs' line, I have to say no 1,000 times to the one thing I have to say yes to. And we do have to be strong that way.
Yeah, I just, what you just said, because through the last couple of years with people being at home and not being able to go to work, I could almost write a book on the phases of the ups and downs that I've observed with people.
Yeah.
And many people have shared with me, Loretta, I'm not doing what really makes my heart happy, or it's really great to be home with the kids as opposed to, well, yeah, sometimes they drive me nuts, but I'm there. So yeah, a lot of people are reevaluating.
How wonderful that that's happening. Yeah, maybe you should take a note of that, because we really have to do what's important. Yeah. And by the way, what's important doesn't always have to have the word spiritual on it. For goodness sakes, raising children, that's your child's going to be a child for a certain period of time, and that's it. And the impression you're going to give your children as a parent is going to stay with them for the rest of their life. So how can that not be a holy endeavor? How can that not be crucially important?
Yeah.
So, it doesn't have to be the word spiritual. You bring your light to everything that you do, and raising family or being a good parent or a spouse or whatever it is. As long as you're putting your heart, like you say, into what you do, then that will, it's what it was the Mother Teresa said, it's not what you do that counts, it's the love that you put in what you do that counts.
Yeah. Yeah, like that pie that Grandma used to make, and I don't know, that love was the
Yeah,
extra
yeah.
ingredient, right? You know what I mean? Yeah.
Isn't that funny how even with food, if something's done out of love, it literally tastes better.
It does. It tastes better. You can taste the love. So I've got a couple of questions. The first one is there an appointed time for us to die then?
Well, the saying I've been told is, every hair on the head is counted. So while there is a time, of course, they don't tell us that. And it doesn't mean that we don't sometimes die prematurely. That can happen. We live in a physical world and accidents do happen. Interestingly enough, if it was our time to die, let's say even as a child, maybe karmically I was meant to die young. Children have like a childhood disease or something that takes them. If they have died at their appointed, they'll spend time on the other side. They'll have a whole life over there. If they've died prematurely, and this happens a lot in wartime, if their life was cut short, then my understanding is they reincarnate very quickly. And there's a book I think that's been written about all these children after World War II that were born, and they're bringing back these childhood memories of, the horrors of a war that they weren't technically part of. So they were obviously souls that had gone through some of the horrors. I mean, we're talking about millions and millions of people that died in that time. And yes, sometimes that happens. So, but death, as you said from the very beginning, is nothing to be afraid of. It's a natural part of life. You're going through what's like literally from one country to another. You just want to make sure you're doing the best you can right now. Yes, there's a beautiful life on the other side. Everything that's here is there, and then some. It's not fantasy land. It's not dreamland. It's not this amorphous. There are aspects of the other side that are so much like here, you may not even think you died. And yeah, there are other parts that are more, divine, angelic. Some realms you can do that beautiful float walking where the power of the mind over the body. It's not again, a fantasy. It's just the laws of nature take on this extraordinary dimensions, and the higher up you go, and it does just become a more beautiful experience. One of my own personal, very early experiences there, it wasn't so much the place was beautiful, but it was the ambiance. The divine ambiance was so strong. I was on a high for 3 days, and I understood why they don't want you to do this often, because you would want to stay there more often, but it gave you inspiration to say, make this life count. I mean, when people have had life-changing out of body, they're different people. They stopped drinking or they stopped. I mean, this woke them up and said, there is a greater life. I mean, if people truly live this life with the understanding there's a greater life and there's accountability for what we do here, we would live this life very differently. I mean, as a society than we are right now. So no, we will, this is a whole other subject with karma, but we are accountable for everything we do here. And we do go before the lords of karma on the other side when we cross over. And they show the book of life, and we see everything we did in living color, not as we remembered it, but as it actually happened. Wow. So let's just try to do a good job while we can now. So we're ready. We want them to say, job well done. That's what we want them to say. On to your next adventure. Yeah.
I'm thinking when you're talking, I've had some near-death experiences, and also, like I'm kind of trying to figure out how to ask this question really for the listeners. What is the difference between, for instance, a near-death experience, a visiting of heaven, actual dying? You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's a really good question, Loretta, because they are different. Everything you just said is a different experience. It's not all the same. So, because somebody asked, well, how do you know? You've never, right. How do you know there's a great beyond if you haven't died?
Right.
How do you really know? So, so there's several things. Now, there have been millions of reported out-of-body experiences, especially, let's say, if someone's been on the operating table and they describe in great detail, because they see what was happening. So there's no question there's been a lot of documentation of consciousness operating out of the body. Now, sometimes in trauma, the body can just sort of get pushed out. It's not even really travel. It's just you get pushed out, so to speak, temporarily. You're still alive, you're still attached to the body. But that's why some people that have been in car accidents or something like that, they talk about how they were thrown out of their body and they were watching their own form there. That is a trauma. That's not really a healthy thing to do necessarily. But you know, it is.
Don't do this at home.
Don't do this at home. Yeah. But it does happen, you know. Now,
Right.
these enlightening out-of-body experiences where they feel like, oh, I was taken to this heavenly place, I saw my grandfather, those are carefully prepared experiences that are giving certain blessings to certain people. Now, you may say, why did they get it, not me? I don't know the answer to that, but that is a planned preparation. The other side is giving you that experience. It's not just happening.
Right.
Now, the other thing is some people do have the volition, the literal will to be able to go out of their body. And they have learned, or it's a talent they have, to what we call project themselves out of their body and travel to different places on Earth, not necessarily the other side, but on Earth. And it can be a little intoxicating to do that. We have recommended not to do that because it is dangerous. There's a lot of crazy stuff there. A woman I knew, she liked to do that until one time she was trying to come back into her body and she saw another spirit trying to futz with that body, you know, while she was out of it. And she said, never again, I'm not doing that again, you know. So there are dangers involved. Now, the other one, and which is really based on this book, is it's not just a planned out-of-body experience, but it is that ability to consciously go to the inner worlds, escorted by the divine. Every example that was given in the book of Barbara's experiences, she wasn't doing this on her own. She was escorted there. She was supported there the whole time, and then they brought her back. And this is an ancient mystical tradition. You know, when Max Heindel was chosen to be the Rosicrucian mystic by the Holy Ones, they would take him to the Rosicrucian temple on the other side, and he started to get some of his instructions there, and then he would bring them back. They would bring him back. And a lot of that work does happen. You touched upon it before we started the show today, when we sleep. You know, we mentioned meditation is really important, but also when you sleep, often you're closer to the spiritual worlds at that time than any other, because of course the active mind is quiet. You can receive many blessings from the inner worlds, and you can also be taken there occasionally, not every night necessarily, for blessings and refreshment and renewal. You know, sometimes we say, hey, I really got to sleep on this. Sometimes we really do, because we actually really are going over there, and we come back next morning, we say, I got it. I know what has to happen now. And that was a memory from the inner worlds of a blessing that you received. Yeah.
I'm giggling because I used to do all my math that way. Like I couldn't figure stuff out, and I just say, I'll sleep on it. I woke up in the morning with all the answers, right?
Oh, wow, good for you. Good for you.
People are like, how'd you do that, Loretta? I'm like, oh, I don't know. What happens when children die?
That's also fascinating. The first thing we do have to realize is there are full adult souls in those child bodies. Okay, so it might be a child body and a childlike consciousness as the mind is kind of developing, but the soul is not a child. So there's a full power in there. Now, if the child dies early, either prematurely or as part of some karmic plan, they do cross over as children on the other side, and they do have to continue the growing period over there. Now, there's no, obviously, families as we think of it here, because there's no procreation on the other side in the same way that there is here. But there are, shall we call them, foster parents? So there are souls that take them in. So for example, let's say there was some people on earth that really wanted to have children, but just didn't have the opportunity in this life, and they've crossed over. Well, maybe they'll have the opportunity to be like a foster parent to one of these astral children, because the soul still has to grow up in that astral body to, shall we say, an adult. So there's always, you know, we're lovingly taken care of on the other side. Yeah. And there is this, as we are here, really. And there is, you know, we say this in the Karma book, there is justice, even what appears to be an unjust world. I know sometimes it really looks like this thing is just upside down, and maybe there is something off center, but the divine always has a way of bringing it back into balance. And if there's been, let's say, long suffering here or difficulties, they work with you a lot on the other side, and they help you. For example, about the World War II thing, I remember when we wrote the book, we asked, well, what about all those people that, died in things like concentration camps and things?
Right.
I mean, were they paying back karma? I mean, that's millions of people. And the answer was maybe some were, but no, others, it was just a horrible experience. But to help balance it out, those that died so heinously, evidently their karma was exonerated for that life. So they burned it out a different way. So the life had value. The incarnation had value, even though it was a very, very unimaginably difficult life. So we can't always understand it from our human eyes. We have to open the eyes of compassion and see this the way the divine sees it. And we will, again, have a different attitude on life.
Yeah, I was thinking when you were talking, I have a lot of people on my show, and I remember Amit Goswami told me one time, and he said, Loretta, we have two worlds. We have this one up here and this one down here, right? And the views are different.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I think sometimes we get our nose so close to the events that we forget that if we pull back a little bit, there is a perfection in that maybe we don't always understand, especially if it's wrapped in trauma or pain. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Trauma or pain is an experience. It's not who we are. We have to recognize that we are a soul. That soul is precious, it's immortal, it's divine, and it cannot be anything else but that. And if I can see that in you, and you can see that in me, if we can come from a place of true compassion, then the veil, we kind of start to see through the veil. Mother Teresa said, I see the face of Christ in everyone I help. She meant that. I mean, not in necessarily the literal world, but she could see the divine spark. And she knew some of those people were not going to be saved, but she told the doctors that try to do more medical. She says, no, I'm here to give them their dignity. When you see somebody for who they really are, you're helping them to recognize themselves. And that is enormous. And that's how God sees us. He doesn't see us as nothing children. God sees us first as those precious immortal sparks going through the experiences of life. And that gives us a different perspective. Yeah. Yeah.
I have like a million questions, and I'm watching the time. Could you touch on soulmates and the mystic marriage in like 2 minutes?
Oh my goodness. Well, I don't know how much. Those are two.
Or take one of those. I know that's a big challenge.
By the way, both are in the book, so get the book and we can cover that. But one of the most, talking a little bit about soulmates, that one of the things we discuss in the book is we may have been born physically as a body, but our soul comes from the highest spiritual realm there is and was born of the divine. And we were these infants in the kingdom of God. And this whole pilgrimage is our opportunity to grow and evolve so that we return back to that kingdom, not as infants, but as spiritually mature. And God, at the beginning, basically paired us up with another soul, a perfectly independent soul of their own, on their own evolutionary path, but in beautiful harmony and synchronicity with us, so that we'd have companionship on the journey and that we would not be alone, shall we say, as we go through this. Now, this doesn't mean we spend all the time with our soulmate. One of the things, we do a whole workshop on soulmate, it's such a big subject, but a very key nutshell is, and I hope this doesn't disappoint anybody here, but generally our soulmate is not on earth at the same time as we. It's kind of like if your beloved was at school with you all day long, you probably get distracted from your studies, you know.
You think?
Yeah. So they're there supporting you from the other side. And then when you go there, they're the reunions, but then they go down and you support them. They're there. And by the way, they're not jealous if you get married and you have kids. They're encouraging it. And so the bottom line is, rather right now than looking for that perfect person, look for how you are perfecting yourself with the person you're with. Oh, there we go. Those are the soulmates entering heaven. Yeah.
Yeah.
You will have plenty of time for those beautiful reunions. Right now, I love Socrates when he had this very cantankerous wife, evidently, would throw things at him all the time. And the disciples would say, well, why do you stay with her? And he said, well, if I can live with her, I can live with anybody.
That's great. Anyway, yeah, we are down to like the last minute or something. Very, very short period of time left. I have so enjoyed this. I have 85 questions. Dimitri, I literally could talk to you all day. I really, really mean it.
If we can do another one at another time. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your Spiritual Arts Institute and where to find the book and that sort of thing.
So yes, Heaven and Your Spiritual Evolution, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, your local bookshop. Support your local bookshop. We got to keep those bookshops alive, So they really need your help right now. They've been through it with the pandemic at this time. With our other books are there as well. Karma, Reincarnation, Heaven, Communing with the Divine, Healing Power of Your Aura, and Change Your Aura, Change Your Life. Our institute, Spiritual Arts Institute, you can find us at spiritualarts.org. We are here in Southern California, but we have these online we were doing online long before the Zoom era started, and it's a wonderful time to study metaphysics. We have workshops and classes. I mentioned, metaphysics is a little bit like learning an instrument.
Yeah. So thank you so much. My guest today, Dimitri Moraitis. This is Loretta Brown. Go, be safe, be filled with love and blessings to everybody. Thank you so much.